You are in the right place. At Clarity Corner with Christiana, we peel back the layers that are clouding your ability to see and show you ways you can reclaim your life and your communication. It's not what you know, it's what you implement that makes all the difference. Welcome to Clarity Corner with Christiana. So happy to be back with you again, and welcome to the beginning of a new month. It's very exciting. Today, we're talking about knowing your destination. So let me ask you, do you know where you're going? Do you know what you want to accomplish this month? If you think about a GPS, whenever you're using a GPS in your car or on your phone, the first thing it asks you is, where are you and where are you going? And once you put it in, it will say, here are the best routes, and it'll give you the time. But if you don't know that endpoint, you can end up anywhere. And the odds of you arriving anywhere are very, very low. So I have a very special guest with me today. She's my repeat guest, my podcast co-host. She is a brilliant, organized planning structure. This woman is incredible when it comes to all forms of goal setting, planning, and accountability. She's worked with thousands of people, both nationally and internationally, through personal development, helping them move through their blocks. She's Canadian. She runs a farm. She runs a real estate business, and she coaches as well. Not to mention, she's adding to her skill set as in Canada, they say herbologist. And I'm really excited to have her back with me today. She's incredible. Please welcome Anita.
Hello, Christiana. It's so great to be back with you and your listeners today.
Oh, thank you so much. So today we're talking about where are you going. So if you don't know your destination, how are you going to get there? And I always think of like Moses in the desert, right? It's like from New York to LA, but it took him 40 years because he didn't have a map, right? So the first step in anything when it comes to planning your month or planning your life, and I like to look at it on a monthly basis, so that way you don't get off track for very long, like an airplane. You keep coming back on track, you keep readjusting. So the first step is always reviewing the previous month. What worked, what didn't work, and what could you do differently? And for me, everyone, the good thing that happened, what worked last month for me is I kept the radio show going, right? I had crazy life exploding all around me. And just to be able to be here, this is one of the highlights of my week that I look forward to. So I was able to do that. What didn't work is all the goals that I had written down, I got 10% accomplished of what I really wanted to do, just because family was a priority. And I put family first. But what I can do differently is I can carry over those goals to this month now that I have more time opening up. So Anita, when you're looking at that, tell me what that work looks like for you.
Oh, I think that it's really important to look at your goals from the previous month, or in my case, it was January lasted 60 days. But look at it with gentleness and a grain of salt. Like yourself, there was things that came up that you weren't expecting with family matters. And for myself, I didn't account for things that other things I had committed to, which is a big mistake. But sometimes you just don't think of it when you're planning out, like January is going to look like this. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I forgot about this big other commitment. So my process is to just be kind and gentle with myself and understand if I've got 10% done that I put on my list, that's probably 10% better than other people who don't at least create a plan.
Absolutely. Right. And again, what I love is we always start with our successes. We always look at our wins, and that is what went right. So celebrating and building yourself up, I think it's very easy for all of us to look at what went wrong and get down on ourselves and lose momentum that way. So if we really start looking at what went right and then what didn't work, not as a judgment, but as okay, well, that didn't work. Like I didn't account for that, or I thought I had it down, but something else came up that as, one of my mentors says, there's all these penguins on the island. When one jumps off, 3 get knocked off on the other side, right? So it's a great example of, when you're full, one little thing can upset the island, and you can lose some of your penguins.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many unexpected things that pop up, but as well, we've talked about this, you and I privately, and I believe on the radio show and in our podcast, where like for January, I had a commitment to 2 hours a day for studying in my plant medicine classes I'm taking.
Mhm.
And that 2 hours, sometimes it took me like 120 minutes, but sometimes it took me way longer than that. And I didn't account for that in my scheduling. Plus, I didn't account for, hey, 2 hours of heavy learning and then to switch gears and go into the office and do like year-end stuff. I did not account for that. And I'm not going to lie, it kicked my butt a little bit.
That's a really good point. Like the mental energy that it takes to learn something, then giving yourself that mental time to shift into another gear is really an important shift. Because a lot of times people have a really hard time getting started and they have a really hard time stopping. Because oftentimes if you have a hard time getting started, you're not going to stop when you're on a roll, but then that throws everything out of your schedule out of whack.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole idea of so here's my practice. I would get up between 5 and 7 a.m.
Mhm.
and start studying. And then when I finished a certain allotted, what I thought would take 2 hours, I have to shift gears. So you go outside, go for a nice walk to clear my head, make a nice tea, do some yoga. But then I was in a place that I really wanted to sit down and tackle more heavy mind work with the office work. So, it was like, okay, what do I do now? Oh, I want to take a nap.
Sometimes
And
that's the most productive thing you can do, actually.
Mhm.
I used to be very negative when it came to napping. And then when I started doing power naps, oh my gosh, it made a massive difference.
Yes, there's such a gift in even 5 minutes. Just lay down, close your eyes, do some deep breathing for 5 minutes. It does shift the day. So there is lots to be enjoyed and appreciated with that. But when you pack, 10 hours of work into an 8-hour day, there's no room for naps. So it gets a little crazy.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you with my schedule, so on the 20th, my mother-in-law passed. So we were around the clock with her before that happened. And my mother had a fall in rehab. So then I was there every morning before she was getting up. So my entire morning routine has been disrupted since February 20th, or actually before that, 3 days before that. So about February 17th, I haven't had a routine, right? And you know how important that is for me because that sets how my day happens. Otherwise, I can go into reaction mode and then I'm handling things, but I'm not doing the things that are on my list. I'm handling other things. Right. And so that sacred time of you doing that 5 to 7 a.m., I think is brilliant. But what happens when that gets disrupted in your life? And now it's like noon before you get back to yourself, and then you have all the other things that you're supposed to do. So it's really powerful. And to understand that, for me, I just had to say, okay, I'm just going to focus on what matters. I'm going to be here to tend to my mother and handle what needs to be handled with the family. And I'm going to let everything else go and only do the stuff that's non-negotiable. And then I'll add when I have a moment.
Right. You bring up such a really valid point. Things happen that you just don't expect. Like you didn't expect the things to happen with your mom or your mother-in-law.
Mm-mm.
And to just be forgiving for yourself, like when you're reviewing your monthly goals or however you do them, just be mindful of that and forgive yourself. Like at any point in time, you can press the pause button, handle what needs to be handled, and then go back and readjust what you've set out to do for the month. You could have, I don't know how much time you lost, but I know you're still not full back into your schedule. So you're going on, into the second, week of having to deal with things. There's no way that you could put in the same amount of time as a 30-day month of working towards your goals if you have had it cut in half. So just being mindful of that and knowing you can adjust it at any point in time.
Exactly. And the more that I talk to people, there are so many people whose lives are getting disrupted in some way. And what I find is it's almost kind of like when you have a diet and you fall off the cart, you're like, well, I'm off. So I'm just going to like be reactive and do what I have to do. And it's like, no, it's okay. Handle what you need to handle, take care of you, refill your gas tank, and then get back on by picking up not the whole thing, but pick up one or two things that you can manage. And as you can manage that, then you can add more. And then you can get your momentum and your rhythm back. And I think that that's where people think it's an all or nothing.
Right. I had a situation before Christmas that I sustained a bit of a back injury. So my ability to do like physical chores around my house, like vacuuming, was impossible. I have a little morning stretching routine that I use to set my morning. I couldn't do that. Like everything got really difficult. So I had to adjust. But rather than like ask myself every month, can I do it again? Can I do it this month? I actually put it off and just started like a week ago, like, wait, what's going on here? I'm like, something's off. And I realized I hadn't been putting that, 10 minutes of intentional setting of my day. I'd been forgetting about that.
Yeah.
So I had to reincorporate it. Looking back, what I would do differently is on my monthly goal setting sheet, I would put it as attempt at least once a week to see where I was at physically in the healing process to reincorporate it or adjust it. Like I totally stopped because I couldn't physically do it.
Or adapt it, do something different, do something that you can do, right? What could you do differently? So when you're looking so for the listeners here, I want you to, if you're not driving, I want you to grab a pen and paper and think about what were you setting out to accomplish? How'd you do? What'd you do? What worked? What'd you get handled? What didn't work? And then what can you do differently? And it's really all about flexibility and adaptation. So that's how we start out every month. We do a review so that way we can have an assessment so we know we're on course or we're off course, and then focus on what is it that you're going to be getting done. And we're going to be diving into that in just a moment. But I want to give a shout out because something really special happened when I was going through that hell with my, I think I'm going to call it hell. It was a lot with my mother-in-law and my mom. My physician, his name is Dr. Jaggers Keene. He's local. He just opened a new location here in Largo. When I was, my mom was sick, he was meeting me on telemedicine calls every day. He gave me his number. I was texting him back and forth. When we were having a problem with my mother-in-law, he took her on as a new patient and cleared space in his calendar to be able to do that. And it felt like I was in a small town, with those old family doctors that would look after you and give you like that kind of VIP concierge, service. And so I just want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Keene because he's amazing. As we go into break, it's mychoicehealthcare.org. If you're looking for a doctor in this area, in the Clearwater Largo area, oh my gosh, he's amazing, Seminole. So it's mychoicehealthcare.org. And go ahead and give him a check out. And we're going to head into break. We'll be right back.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Want more out of your doctor's visit than a quick conversation with the doc with limited time? Dr. Jaggers Keene is the one-stop doc who treats you like family. From broken bones to slips and falls, he has you covered along with annual exams. This physician provides VIP concierge treatment at no extra cost. Dr. Keene offers comfort in a setting that provides answers. His new Largo family practice is accepting new patients. Fluent in Spanish, he offers telemedicine too. Go to mychoicehealthcare.org or call 727-732-3969 for your appointment today.
Are you hoping to grow your business but not sure how? Has your business flattened out? It may be your messaging. This is Maureen Famiano with MEF Media. I've been in the TV broadcasting business for more than 30 years, and I enjoy helping businesses and entrepreneurs go to the next level. It's about strategy and branding, finding the right story to tell, and then getting media exposure. I'm here to help you grow your business. Find me on Facebook or my website at MEF Media, and let's launch your next chapter today.
A few years ago, my skin was a mess. It was dry, lifeless, and aging fast. My busy travel schedule teaching yoga across the world was really catching up on me. I tried everything I could find, and it just got worse. So I created my own product based on 100% natural ingredients, and what a difference. Now my skin is glowing and radiant, and I look and feel 10 years younger. The serum I used is called F3. It's our best seller, and I've created a whole range of products to suit all skin types. So if you want actual results using 100% natural skincare, visit formulaflawless.com.
Don't turn it off now. You need this stuff. Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back to Clarity Corner with Christiana. So happy to have you back. I'm here with special guest Anita Berger, and we are talking about how do you know your destination? So getting accomplished what you want to get accomplished this month. So we talked about reviewing the previous month. So Anita, when you're looking at, I know we have different ways of approaching it, and I want to remind you, if you're listening, every personality type has a different approach. So Anita is very blueprint. She's very structure systems, just like Bobby, very structure systems, planning processes. I'm nurturing. I kind of feel into what I want to get done. And, some people just bottom line want to go, go, go. They're the full action takers. And some people do a lot of research and they want to get a lot of information. And sometimes they have a hard time getting started. So Anita, as that blueprint, how do you approach your planning for the month? Because I know it's constantly shifting.
Right. Well, the first thing I do, and I learned this from past mistakes,
Mhm.
is I look at my calendar to see what I have already booked. And I account for that, because if I have a 2-week vacation or a trip somewhere planned or meetings for half of the month, I have to adjust my goals for the month. And then, of course, like right now, for us, I think you guys are on the same time, but our personal taxes are getting ready to be sent to accountants and whatnot. So
Mhm.
I look at what are the really things that need to be done in the next little while, and I start working on that. But I also look at things that have to be handled, like, kind of cleanups and messes, so I'm always working on something that can propel my business forward, things that I have to look after, day-to-day stuff. But I kind of look at the full picture, and based on that, I prioritize what needs to be done.
Mhm.
But I also remember that there has to be balance. So I schedule in, things like my massages and, self-care components.
Yes, for me, that's the part that's fallen off the wagon. All my self-care that I love to do. I'm so excited. Tomorrow, I actually get to go to the spa and just like sit and relax, which I'm really excited about. But so again, this is a very important thing. What I love is, and this is something I didn't do, I would make my goals without looking on my calendar. So I'd take everything I already had and then add everything on top of it. And then I would get frustrated that I would run out of time. And you're laughing because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I focus on planning is a little bit different. I focus on the past, present, and future approach. So what from my past do I need to clean up? And this is really powerful as I'm helping clean up an estate. It's visceral that you're like, oh my gosh, what in my life do I have like that is a gap that still needs to be cleaned up? Like what if like, my mother left her house on January 16th and she's probably not going to go back because she's probably looking at going into long-term care just because the stage that her dementia's at, we're still waiting to see. So what if you never got to go back home again? Would you be organized? Would your planning be in place? Would you have everything? I laugh because, even I, as the planner, still have some things that have fallen off my island, my little penguin island, right? Because I just got overwhelmed. And so there is always an ebb and flow, but understanding that. So the past, I always like to clean up one thing from the past so I don't keep carrying that with me so I can close a cycle. Then I like, okay, what do I have to get done this month? And right now it's managing the women. So what do I have to get done in order for that to happen? And then what do I have to do for my business? What are the key things that must get done? So I've got those. And then I have, what am I preparing for coming up? Right? I have an event on the 24th that I'm going to be doing in Daytona. Okay, I have to be planning and moving for that. Right. And so really looking at what's coming up, what needs to be happening in the future. So that way I don't feel like I'm always just stuck in the urgent and important. I can actually start planning ahead.
Right. Yeah. And planning ahead is so important. We do, like you and I both have done kind of a goal sheet for the year, which for the life of me, with all the paperwork around me right now, I don't even know where it is. Like, it's so terrible. But I look at what I want to accomplish in the year, and every month, I'm looking at, like, am I moving towards that?
Mhm.
Now, complete and full disclosure, knowing that we were talking about this today, I started my plan for the month because yesterday, well, the first is just a challenging day for me because it's a busy business day.
Mhm.
And I've neglected to do it before month end, but, taking the time this morning to, okay, what needs to be done this month? What can I do that is going to propel my business forward or my life forward, to the end goal for this year? Like, what does that need to look like?
Mhm.
And just sitting with that, not just going into my day timer, but I do account for that. But I don't pick goals just out of the air. I really put some time and effort into thinking, like, how can I move myself forward to where I want to be?
Absolutely. And so I also, invite you guys to go back and listen to the planning for the year segment that we did, because we talked about having an end goal. So you know what 3 areas of your life you want to improve. So you know that you're chipping away, working towards those 3 areas. So you're not applying the approach, like, oh, what am I going to do this month? Right. And you're like making it up on the spot. So again, it's knowing your destination guides the goals that you set, which then guides where you're going. It's not like you're just making it up. Now, I've had something come up where, now family has become the top rung of my ladder right now. And that's just how it has to be until that gets situated and organized. Once that happens, then I can go back to my three goals. But my family was always part of it, but it wasn't part of the business goals that I wanted to get done, but it's taking time. So just honoring that is really important. So I love that you said that. Also, Anita, I want to honor you and really celebrate you, because you lost the caretaker. So you're in real estate and you have a bunch of units, and that's great when you have a caretaker. But when you don't have a caretaker and one that upholds your standards, you, with a back injury, have been going crazy keeping that business going.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I blocked that from my memory.
That was a big one.
Yeah, it was. Last year, we have apartment buildings, and the on-site caretaker for a couple of our buildings decided to move on to a different town altogether. He moved out of the area.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to replace him. And I decided, rather than to rush into finding someone, and this has been on my monthly list since last June.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to cultivate a really good definition of who I can put in that position. And it took a while. And part of it was for me to sit into that position, work the business from their perspective. Then I had this understanding of exactly what was needed. And I shifted my viewpoint from finding someone to do the work to finding someone who wants to be in the rental business and learn from the ground up, because that's how I learned. I learned from the ground up, making my own mistakes and with my own money. But rather than hire somebody who wants a job, we looked and shifted and decided to find someone who wants to learn about the rental business. And I'm not even kidding. Once I became clear on that, it was about 6 weeks before I found somebody. And I'd been looking for over 6 months.
Well, and now the level and the quality of work is totally different, right? Because they're looking at how can they run this as their own business. So you're actually getting the standard that you were looking for.
Yes.
Which is incredible.
I shifted the viewpoint, my viewpoint, and then I redefined what we were looking for. And exactly, I'm getting the quality of work, the ambition, the drive, somebody who wants to be in that and wants to present themselves in the same manner that I want to present myself.
So for those of you that have had a goal on your list and you keep at it and it's not working, how can you shift your viewpoint to look at it from another way? Like, what's another way that you could solve that? Again, remember, multiple viewpoints. And we've talked about this in our podcast. So you can go back and listen to the podcast. You want to give a shout out to the podcast, Anita?
Oh, yes. That was so much fun. You and I did a podcast called The Implementation Experiment. I believe we did 3 seasons. So I don't know how many, like a lot of podcasts. But I spent a lot of time talking about basically our experience in doing things versus just and making it part of our beingness. So we're not just doing the action every day of getting up and running our business. We embodied that and shared that. It was really, really great. And we may pick it up one day in the future, but right now we're both on different adventures.
Exactly. So you can go to the Implementation Experiment. It's on all of the streaming platforms, and you can listen to the one called Multiple Viewpoints. So I'd have you look at that, because if you're stuck in only seeing something in one way, you can bang your head against a wall over and over and over and get really frustrated, where all she had to do was think a little bit bigger, a little outside the box to go, wait a second, what's the goal? And if I can pay someone to get trained on the job to learn a new business, that's going to be a completely different experience and quality of work. And then all of a sudden, very quickly, you were able to fill that position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By switching the viewpoint, looking at it differently, it's no different than when we would have a vacancy in a rental. Sometimes people wouldn't clean it like we wanted, and I would
Exactly.
get really frustrated. Instead, what I started to do, rather than get frustrated, I'm like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to go in, look at the space, and present it the way I want to, with the same, like lovingly wash the walls and just change the whole energy of the space.
Mhm.
And when I shifted that, yeah, I just looked at it differently. As much as I don't like cleaning, if I have to clean, it doesn't wear me out anymore.
It's beautiful when you talk about that. So I want you guys to focus on when you're setting goals for the month. One, what are the 3 things that you're focusing on accomplishing this month? How are you keeping that in front of you? Like Anita said, when papers build up, it's easy to get sidetracked. So how are you keeping it front of mind, top of mind? Are you putting Post-it notes? As Bobby was holding up his Post-it notes,
Yay! You talked about my Post-it notes.
Bobby remembers by having Post-it notes everywhere.
I also do this other interesting thing I was just thinking about. I don't set my iPhone reminders for, say, a due date or something like that. I set them for the time in which I, because of the Blueprint Mind, the time in which I think I will be not necessarily able to complete the task,
Mhm.
but to basically when the motivation starts to complete the task, kind of like.
Oh,
If that
okay.
makes any sense.
Yeah. So there's like times of day that you're more active or more ready to do something. So you
Right.
probably put it in that time.
And it won't just get pushed off again.
Exactly. That's a great idea. So technology is a great way. So there's physical people and digital people. So you have to know which one you are. And I've talked about that in previous shows. So if you're digital, you're going to default to digital to remind you. If you're physical, you're going to be more papers, Post-its, things like that. So again, you can also do a hybrid as well. But again, the whole point is, what are the 3 things that you're focusing on? So that way you keep your focus and you know what you're going to get done. So when you have that, it's really going to be moving you in the direction that you want to go, and you won't get sidetracked as easily.
I love that. First of all, shout out to Post-it notes. I literally have like Post-it notes on my laptop right now of things that need to be handled. So yay.
Bobby
For
is
those on the radio, we showed our Post-it notes on the
Oh, you
cameras.
did? Oh, that's so funny. That's funny. Exactly. And then the other thing that I really want to talk about too is what haven't you planned for? So there's something that's really been on my mind about if this was the last year of your life, if this was the time, because life has been so uncertain, especially with everything going on in the world. It's like we can't guarantee that time is always going to be there. So are we planning? And you had talked about your dad and what he was doing with his planning. And I really want to dive into, just have a look at your life. Is your life set up where if something were to happen, people know how to handle it? That you have a team in place, someone who can come in and speak on your behalf? Do you have an advocate? Do you have all your papers in a way where somebody can find them? I'm going through my mother-in-law's house and reconstructing. Well, since I've had over 2 decades in organizing, I can do that. But if it was just left to someone who didn't have that skill set, they would be pulling their hair out, right? So have a look around your life and make a list of the things that you haven't handled and put that on your past list so you can start attacking them, on a monthly basis. Pick one and get it done. But Anita, would you share what was going on with your dad or your father-in-law?
Yeah, it was my father-in-law, but that's totally okay. Yeah, it's very fascinating. He wanted to go through and make sure that his will was in place, and he spent like 2 years doing it. But then he was hospitalized, and then he's rushing to try and finish it. He's in his deathbed going, oh my God, I didn't finish it. And it worried him like crazy. And at the end of the day, the will itself was unnecessary, but he focused on what he wanted to leave everybody, to the point that he forgot some really important stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He forgot to, tell his wife about, loans that he had, because they had separate finances, some loans he had and bank accounts and stuff. So when I stepped in there and started clearing out his office and finding this stuff, it was fascinating. And I was able to handle it, don't get me wrong, but from that perspective, he was worried so much about these details that didn't matter. He forgot the details that did matter.
That's a really good point, because it comes down, and this is why I do the clarity mapping, right? Where we start getting all the information out of your head so we can start seeing what you have. And then that triggers other things. And when you do it with somebody else, and you know this, India, when you do it with somebody else, and Bobby and I are going to do this as well, all of a sudden you have somebody saying, well, what about this? Or what about this? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that.
Exactly. And that's where, just you and I doing our weekly accountability call for I'm going to say we're heading on 4 years, maybe. It has really helped me to get my mind wrapped around everything that goes on in our business.
Right.
I would discredit the paperwork I do until I started realizing through our weekly discussions what it all entailed. And then that propelled me to oh, wait, there's this other stuff. If something were to happen, oh my God, no one knows how to do this. So the more details and more integrated I got with the paperwork and understanding the depth of it, the more I realized other people needed to learn it.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you too, communication, everything comes down to personality types, right? So he may have been a super knowledgeable guy that loved all the information, but sometimes they really love the big picture, but sometimes they miss the big picture because they're so stuck in the details that they forget to tie it all together, right? So it really comes down to each personality type approaches this differently. And our blueprints, generally, the ones who love structure and systems, they generally are risk averse. So they tend to plan ahead for these kinds of things. I can say that my father-in-law was a pastor in a church, and we found that he had 3 death planning processes. And it's why so many? I'm like, well, that's his industry, right? He's all about that. And then he runs funerals. And so it was his top of mind. So he was really good when it came to that stuff. So he would always keep doing it to make sure he had it handled. But again, it just depends on what are you paying attention to? What do you need to pay attention to? And then how do you handle it? And when it comes to these things, it doesn't have to be super time intensive. You can make the list of all the things that are open and yet to do. And at the same point, then you can chip away at them one at a time.
Right. I think a really important point to bring up right now is when you're making these lists, play to your strengths. And if it is not one of your strengths, delegate it.
Yes.
Delegate it to someone who is really gifted in that area. And that's where I was brought in with my father-in-law, because they knew that I was gifted in understanding that end. So he was, part of him probably knew he didn't have to say anything because I would find it.
Oh, that's smart. Absolutely. So guys, we're going to dive more deeply into this when we get back. We're going to head to break. If you guys want to call in, you can call in at 727-441-3000. Again, 727-441-3000. And we'll be right back.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
A few years ago, my skin was a mess. It was dry, lifeless, and aging fast. My busy travel schedule teaching yoga across the world was really catching up on me. I tried everything I could find, and it just got worse. So I created my own product based on 100% natural ingredients, and what a difference. Now my skin is glowing and radiant, and I look and feel 10 years younger. The serum I used is called F3. It's our best seller, and I've created a whole range of products to suit all skin types. So if you want actual results using 100% natural skincare, visit formulaflawless.com.
Want more out of your doctor's visit than a quick conversation with a doc with limited time? Dr. Jaggers-Keene is the one-stop doc who treats you like family. From broken bones to slips and falls, he has you covered along with annual exams. This physician provides VIP concierge treatment at no extra cost. Dr. Keene offers comfort in a setting that provides answers. His new Largo family practice is accepting new patients. Fluent in Spanish, he offers telemedicine too. Go to mychoicehealthcare.org or call 727-732-3969 for your appointment today.
Are you hoping to grow your business but not sure how? Has your business flattened out? It may be your messaging. This is Maureen Famiana with MEF Media. I've been in the TV broadcasting business for more than 30 years, and I enjoy helping businesses and entrepreneurs go to the next level. It's about strategy and branding, finding the right story to tell, and then getting media exposure. I'm here to help you grow your business. Find me on Facebook or my website at MEF Media, and let's launch your next chapter today.
Don't turn it off now. You need this stuff. Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back to Clarity Corner with Christiana. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being here with us. Today is all about knowing your destination. If you have no idea where you're going, how are you going to get there? So I have special guest Anita Berger, and we are talking about planning and what are the things that you haven't planned for that you might not even have thought about. You know, it depends on your life. Like, it's so funny, as I'm going through with my mother-in-law, I'm looking at these end of life booklets and all the things that you have to account for. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, there's like 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I didn't even think of. Like, how would you know these things if it wasn't in your sphere of what you're dealing with? So again, I really want to be able to say every month we want to focus on how we cleaned up the past, like look at last month, what worked, what didn't work, what can we do differently? And then this month, what are we focusing on? But I really want to give some time to what would happen to your family, whether it's you, your partner, your spouse, your kids. If something were to happen, would you be ready? You know, do you have everything in order? Or would you be left holding the bag? And if I can inspire any of you to just get help, like Anita said, delegate, go to the expert, go to an attorney, find out, hey, here's my paperwork. You know, the worst thing you can do is copy a legal agreement online and expect it to hold up in a court of law. I mean, that's just not going to happen or end in your favor more times than not, right?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. One of the best things I did years ago, I was in our business, I was using an accountant, but she wasn't an expert in her field.
Mm-hmm.
She did the job, but she wasn't an expert. And I had this feeling I needed to switch, and I went to an expert, and she saved me, or the new accountant saved me like over $50,000. So when you're looking at, you know, planning and stuff in areas that you're not confident and competent in, hire an expert. You might think it's a lot of money. Like my accounting bill, like I think was 4 times what she was charging, but it saved me thousands and thousands of dollars. So by delegating to an expert, yes, it's going to cost you more, but in the long run, you're probably going to save yourself time, money, a headache, you know, all that stress associated with doing things incorrectly and then having to go back and fix.
Absolutely. And then also I want to invite you to do a tune-up. Like, okay, maybe you did that 5 years ago, but maybe things have changed, right? Maybe things aren't the same as they once were and you need to update your documentation, right? Look at, you know, make sure you have beneficiaries on everything. Make sure that you still want those people as your beneficiaries, right? Make sure that you have things accounted for. If there's something that you want done, be as specific as possible in order to have it executed. Make sure you have someone who can look after you, you can have a backup for that person in case that person's not available, because things happen and sometimes people aren't available. So I really just want to stress that, because in the middle of the emergency or the middle of the time is not the time to handle it. The time to handle it is while things are calm.
Right.
But it's the unsexy topic, right? Nobody wants to talk about nobody wants to talk about that. But everything going on in the world, pandemic related, it makes it a little bit easier, because we used to think, well, I'm only this age, it's not going to happen to me. But then you see people of all ages. There's no certainty in that way anymore. So now more than ever, having your ducks in a row is really important.
Mm-hmm. And if you can approach it, what I like to do with a lot of my goal setting is I approach it like there's the theory to check your smoke detector batteries, you know, in the spring and fall when time changes. You know, that's a really good idea for a lot of things. Like that's that time when we have the time change in the spring and the fall. That's when it's a trigger for me to, you know, certain things to be done around the home, certain things be done around the business. Why not make that part of your practice? Find 2 times of the year that are really significant and easy to remember, like time changes, and take that opportunity, put it in your calendar, do it right now, to review your estate planning or your business protocol. Just book it in a couple times a year, and then it's just always done.
Absolutely. I was working with a client who's a commercial real estate, and he's up in Chicago. Well, all right, you have 4 seasons up there. So the seasons depict when things get done. And so come on, this doesn't really apply to me. I've lived in Florida and California for the last, 30 plus years. So seasons, they're a nice idea, but they're not the same as they are if you're up north where the snow is coming and it must get done. So you have
Yes.
more urgency there than anywhere else. But the seasons are a way of marking time and a way of reminding you, hey, this has to happen before. You have to harvest. Like if you think of a farmer, you have to plant the seeds at a certain time in order to get a harvest at a certain time in order to actually feed your family. So if you think of it like that, it's very easy for you and Bobby because you're the blueprints and you plan and that's easy. But, for the other personality types, it may not be as simple as that, right? It's for someone who's very action style, they're probably going to want to delegate as much as they can and just say, hey, you remind me when it's time and just ask me what you need and get it done. But I want people to really understand it comes down to we all have to have these things in place, or it's going to stress out your family, or you could leave people in a position that's not great. And I'll tell you, when we did our estate planning, I didn't want to answer a lot of those questions. I didn't want to think about it, but I'm grateful I did.
Yeah, it's a tough topic. And, from talking about goals and stuff to kind of veering into the direction that's like a little bit morbid, a little bit difficult to talk about. But that's why it's so important to talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, there's people that, here's the reality. There's people that got up this morning and went to work and they're never going to come home.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have their ducks in a row, there's people that are left behind that are going to have to handle that. So why not just take a little proactive, even if you're writing stuff down in a notebook and at some point have those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
It's easier to have that difficult conversation than to have to scramble and create chaos and stress for the people that are left to deal with that.
Well, and I'll tell you, just going through this with my family, I created a long-term care policy. So I got an additional life insurance policy. So I'm provided for every month. And I'm taking care of that myself because I don't want to be in this position. I have to tell you, I'm obsessed right now with helping people communicate better, and in assisted living facilities, in hospice, in rehab, in caregiving. I see so much miscommunication. And if you don't have your stuff in place, it's not going to get better. It's only going to degrade from there. So my passion is really bringing that communication into that industry to really make a difference, because it's so needed. And again, that still comes down to the planning, right? And they're having such a hard time holding on to people because, again, if you're not valued, if you're not communicated to, and you're constantly bumping heads with people, you're not going to put up with that for long. So again, that's also a planning thing too. Like, how can you plan in your business to make sure you have something solid where you keep your people, you keep your retention, things like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a mouthful.
No, I totally get it. And I understand completely what you said. Oh geez. Now I'm like off on a tangent. I don't remember. Oh yeah, there we go. By playing to the personalities, which I love, that has been such a valuable tool for me, and understanding how different people think and act, and basing creating your protocols so people can understand them. But when you're working with people, just know that the blueprints, we're going to act differently than the action takers. They're just going to react differently. So understanding that, and for yourself, this passion to create systems or help long-term care facilities is amazing, because if you can create something that every type of personality can understand, man, it's just going to change everything.
Absolutely. It's just, planning always comes down to, you can have the best plan, but if you can't communicate, you're still going to falter in executing it, because people aren't going to understand what you're talking about. And, it's really funny to watch Bobby's personality when I have different personalities come on, and you can see him, whenever you're my guest, he's smiling from ear to ear going, oh yeah, yeah. Cause you can see that he is just vibing off of what you're saying, because you're speaking his language. Right, Bobby?
Absolutely. And then other ones come on and I'm just like, I don't know. Can't relate when it's any other personality type.
Exactly. And once you can identify that in yourself, and the other thing too is it's it's all about understanding that each person communicates differently. And when you make it about the other person in front of you, everything changes, right? And even when it comes to planning, like when you're doing your goals, you're doing that for your business, which helps your family, which helps, every aspect of your life. If you're doing the planning that we're talking about, same thing. You're putting things in place that are going to make other people feel comfortable.
Right. And you know what, I think I've sort of touched on this, but by physically writing down every month the things that I wanted to do, and then I have a review where I write down at the end of the month things that got accomplished, kind of my wins and such. What I've essentially done is created a 12-month diary of what happened in my life. And if something happens, at least my family can go back and look and like, oh yeah, February is when she had tax stuff going on. April is when she had certain things going on because it will be spring here. Right now we have 2 feet of snow, but there's spring things, there's fall things that show up seasonally and on a calendar in that. So I've documented, like if you're somebody that needs a lot of structure or wants an action plan, well, just look at the last 12 months and I have it all documented.
Absolutely. And if you're not someone who documents, right, then start just putting little things down, like even just this thing where we're looking at, okay, what am I focusing on this month? What worked, what didn't work last month? If you start this process and you have one notebook or one document that you start keeping these in, you can start tracking your progression. And instead of losing time, getting off on a tangent, now you can keep yourself on track to achieve what you want. And that's the whole purpose of this show, is to help you get clarity in where you're going, what you want to do, how you want to get there. And that's the purpose of me being here for you guys. I'm here just as a resource. This is something that every time I go somewhere and I have a conversation, someone's like, oh my God, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you so much. And you may think you're alone, but you're not.
Right. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, you're not alone in this. Like, I didn't realize people thought the way I did until, you started pointing out the personalities, working with other people. Once you start seeing other people having the same experiences, one, you can know you're not alone. And two, you can use that to your advantage. Like, I see how you approach your monthly goals. I see how other mentors of ours approach the goals. And then I just totally Anitafied it and made it my own.
Yes. You mean you blueprinted it. Anitification is blueprinting. But yes, absolutely. Again, it's take what works, leave the rest. And what works for you is not going to work for everybody. Everybody processes and retrieves information differently. So take a 10-minute magic. We've talked about this before. 10-minute magic is the best thing on the planet. It's like go back and listen to a past show for 10-minute magic, or you can go to the implementationexperiment.com, right? Or no, sorry, we don't have the .com. So we have the implementation experiment, and you can search for the 10-minute magic show. And oh my God, this just will help you start reclaiming your time. But your planning doesn't have to be this big, crazy thing. Take 10, 20 minutes and just get it down and get in the process of it. Just start with a little bit and then build on it. And you'll find it becomes easier and easier the more you do it.
Right. Yeah. 10-minute magic. I've shared that podcast. I've shared the teachings with so many people, and it makes a big difference. And if you put in 10 minutes and into creating goals for the month, and you have a 10% improvement in your life, that's totally worth the 10-minute investment. Oftentimes,
all it takes is 10% to get a maximum return on where you're going. We talk about that in a sales velocity equation. If you just change what you're doing and you just improve 10% and you just reduce the time it takes 10%, you get a 47% shift in the velocity of what you're able to create. So 10% is huge. So the power of 10 is amazing. And so as we wrap up today, I just want to say, Anita, what are your final thoughts for the listeners today as they go and they're planning this month?
Well, take some time, 10 minutes, and have fun and, envision what you want to get done for the week or the month that's going to move you forward to what you want to accomplish in the next year of your life, or 6 months, or just make your life easier. But at the end of the day, just have fun with it, because it's literally you're just planning things, and you have the ability and the right to adjust it at any point in time.
I love that. Thank you so much, Anita. I always learn so much from you. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you are incredible. And thank you for keeping me on track for all these years. Again, when it comes to planning, if you're that blueprint personality, it's just going to help you reduce your risk and be able to accomplish and get predictable results in your life. If maybe you just want to be able to connect better with people and improve your relationships, if you plan, this will be able to make that happen. Or maybe you just need to make sure you have all the information that you need in order to get where you're going. That's really important once you do this. And maybe you just bottom line want to get where you're going and what's the quickest way to get there. And you need the flexibility by knowing where you're going. So when opportunities come up, you can jump at them. So this provides all of that depending on the personality that you're coming into it with. So I want to give another shout out to Dr. Keen. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show. He is that one-stop doc that treats you like family, and he's changing healthcare, because I find when I go to other doctors, they keep reducing the amount of time that I get to see them. And he always takes time with me to make sure he's accessible, treats you like the old school family doc. And he really is that one-stop shop. He gives you VIP concierge treatment at no additional cost. If you want to be treated like a VIP, go there. It's mychoicehealthcare.org, and you can call 727-732-3969 to book an appointment and check him out. Again, it's 727-732-3969, and it's Dr. Jaggers Keen. Again, guys, thank you. Be sure to check out Clarity Corner every Wednesday at 5 p.m., where we continue to help you uncover what's clouding your vision and holding you back, helping you get clarity on how to connect better with others, get all the information, get the system, and get results. Guys, we'll see you next week. Have an amazing day. Thank you.